Alright, this is an original Tales Fair story. This is one of those where someone finally says no and protects what really matters. Alright, let's get into it.
My parents demanded that my 12-year-old daughter pay $100 towards a present for her cousin. "If you don't pay, you are no longer family," my mom said. I didn't shout. I showed them who is no longer family. The next day, I had 53 missed calls. When I opened the front door, I knew something was wrong before I even saw Mia. The house had that too quiet feeling, like it was holding its breath, like the air had been told to keep a secret. Mia was at the kitchen table, shoulders hunched, backpack still on the floor where she'd dropped it. Her hair was pulled back too tight. Her hands were flat on the tabletop, palms down, like she was trying to keep them from trembling. "Hey," I said, soft. "What's going on?" She looked up, and that's when I saw it. The exhaustion that didn't belong on a 12-year-old. Not the normal middle school is annoying tired. Not, I stayed up reading tired. This was the kind of tired you're not supposed to see on a 12-year-old. The kind that makes someone's eyes look older than the rest of their face. "Mia?" I set my keys down slowly, like making noise might break her. "Did something happen at school?" She blinked once, like she was loading the right expression. "No?" Her voice came out careful, normal on purpose. "I just worked." I frowned. "Worked?" She nodded and tried to sit up straighter, like posture could hide fatigue. "I cleaned Mrs. Novak's house," she said. "For 3 hours." 3 hours? I stared at her hands. Her knuckles looked rubbed raw. The skin around her nails was red, like she'd been scrubbing at something that didn't want to come off. "You cleaned?" I repeated, because my brain was stalling. "Mrs. Novak's house." Mia nodded again, as if this was the most ordinary sentence in the world. "She paid me," Mia added, a small flicker of pride breaking through the exhaustion. $20. I didn't react immediately, because at first, my mind tried to file this under responsible kid, good work ethic. Neighbors pay for chores sometimes. I wanted to be that mom who says, "Wow, honey, that's impressive." But then Mia flexed her fingers, winced, and rubbed her palm like it hurt to exist. "And I still have homework," she said, voice dipping. "But I'm so tired, and my hands, I can't hold the pen right now. It hurts." I stepped closer, careful. "Let me see." She hesitated, just a beat, then turned her hands over. The skin was pruny in places, like she'd been in water too long. There were faint purple-yellow patches on her wrist like she'd knocked it against something. Not dangerous, not hospital, just too much. My throat tightened. "Mia," I said quietly, "why did you do that today?" She looked down at the table like the grain of the wood was giving her instructions. "I needed money." There it was, the first crack. I forced my voice to stay steady. "Okay. For what?" I asked it gently, like I expected her to say a toy, a book, some game she didn't want to ask me for, and honestly, if Mia wanted something, she could ask. My husband Thomas and I weren't struggling. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, stable. The kind of stable that lets your kid be 12 without becoming an exhausted miniature adult. So I smiled a little, just enough to keep her calm. "What are you saving up for?" I asked. "Do you want something special?" Mia's mouth opened, closed. She swallowed. "It's not for me," she said, and something in my chest went cold. "It's for Sophie." Sophie, my niece. My sister Heather's older kid, the one my family spoke about like she'd solved world peace. Mia cleared her throat. "They're collecting money. For her birthday." I stared at her. "Who is collecting money?" Mia shrugged, like shrugging could make this smaller. Everyone. Everyone. The word hit like a weight. How much? I asked, already knowing I wasn't going to like the answer. Mia's voice got smaller. 100. My brain did a strange little stutter. $100? She nodded. I just stood there, frozen, trying to make it make sense. Sophie was 12. Same as Mia. There was no universe where a 12-year-old should be working herself into soreness to fund another 12-year-old's birthday gift. That sentence shouldn't even be possible. Mia, I said slowly, who told you that you had to pay $100? She hesitated again. Then, Grandma. My mother. Mia said it the way you say the name of someone who decides whether you're safe. And that's when I saw it. Beyond the tiredness, the other thing. The part that didn't come from cleaning. The part that didn't come from scrubbing floors. Fear. The kind that sits behind the ribs and presses. Mia, I said, very carefully. What exactly did Grandma say? Mia's eyes got shiny. She blinked hard, like she could keep the tears inside by force. She said... Mia's voice wobbled, just once, then she clamped it down. She said if I don't pay, I'm not... family. I felt my whole body go still. What? Mia stared at the table. She said if I don't contribute, I'm no longer family. I didn't move. I didn't breathe, because my brain was trying to reject it. Like it was an email phishing scam and my mind was highlighting the obvious red flags. That's ridiculous. That's not real. That's not something a grandmother says to a child. But Mia's hands were still red. Mia's eyes were still wet. And Mia looked like she'd believed it. Are you sure you understood her right? I heard myself ask, because denial is a powerful drug. Mia nodded quickly. Yes. She said everyone is contributing, and if I don't, then... I'm not family. A tear slid down her cheek. Then she added, I didn't ask you. I thought it had to be my money. Like if you pay, it wouldn't count. And... I broke open my piggy bank, but it wasn't enough. Mia, I said, and my voice did something I didn't like. It cracked at the edges. Oh, honey. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand like she was annoyed at herself for leaking. I think I shouldn't have told you, she whispered. My stomach twisted. Listen to me, I said. You didn't do anything wrong. But even as I said it, I knew something. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a weird joke. This wasn't my mother being a little intense. This was my mother being my mother. I stood up so suddenly the chair scraped. Mia jumped. I'm going to call Grandma, I said. Mia's eyes widened. Mom, it's okay, I lied. Because it was not okay and we both knew it. I walked into the living room with my phone, like physical distance could keep Mia safe from whatever was about to happen. I didn't call to scream. I didn't call to fight. I called because there was a part of me, one stubborn, hopeful, humiliating little part, that needed to hear my mother deny it. She answered on the second ring, cheerful, like she hadn't just snapped a child's sense of belonging in half. Hi, sweetheart, my mother said. Everything okay? I stared at the wall. Mom, I said. Mia told me something. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. Oh, my mother's voice was light. Curious? Performative. Mia said you told her she has to contribute $100 towards Sophie's birthday present. A pause. Not surprised. Not confused. Just a pause. Like she was deciding how to phrase it. Yes, my mother said. That's right. My hand tightened around the phone. She's 12, I said, because sometimes stating reality feels like a prayer. So? My mother replied. 12-year-olds can work. They can learn. My pulse thudded in my ears. And, I said slowly, did you tell her that if she doesn't pay, she's no longer family? My mother didn't miss a beat. Yes, she said, calm as tap water. Because she needs to learn what it means to support family, financial obligation, values. Values. Like Mia's sore hands were a lesson plan. I stood there, staring at nothing, feeling something inside me go quiet. Not angry, not explosive. Quiet, like a door closing. Okay, I heard myself say. What? My mother asked, suspicious now because okay is not the response she likes. I have to go, I said. Eleanor. I ended the call. I stood there for a second with the phone in my hand, and I could hear Mia in the kitchen shifting in her chair, the soft squeak of it, and I knew exactly what was going to happen next. I didn't know how yet, but I knew this wasn't over. I need you to understand something about me. I wasn't born with a backbone. I grew one the hard way, like a callus. I was the oldest of 3, 2 years between each of us. Heather came after me, then Leo, the baby, the miracle boy, the one who could burp and still get applause. When I was little, my parents loved to say we were struggling. They said it like it was a weather pattern, like poverty was a season that just happened to us. And when families struggle, someone always gets assigned to understand it. That someone was me. Heather got to be cute. Leo got to be little. I got to be reasonable. On Christmas mornings, Heather would unwrap something that made her squeal. Leo would get something soft and bright and age-appropriate, and my mom would clap her hands and say, "Look at his face!" And I would get something, not nothing. That would have been too obvious. Something small, something safe, something that came with a smile and a line that sounded like praise. "You're older," my mother would say. "You understand." They said it like understanding was a gift, like it should make me proud. And for a long time it did, because if you're the kid who gets less, you learn to make a story that doesn't hurt. You tell yourself, they're younger, they need more. You tell yourself, we don't have money. You tell yourself, it's fine, I'm fine. Chores came next. When I was old enough to reach the sink, I was old enough to scrub it. I did dishes, I folded laundry, I cleaned, i.e. helped. Heather was too busy with school, Leo was too little. Except then Heather stopped being too little, and somehow she stayed too busy. By the time Heather was the age I'd been when I started doing half the house, she still had the kind of chores that were optional, the kind you could forget without consequences. I had the kind that became my personality. "You're the responsible one," an adult would say, like responsibility was a crown and not a chain. And I believed them, because again, rigged game. But I didn't know it was rigged yet. I was 12 when I started working, dog walking, small cleaning jobs, odd little things neighbors paid kids for because it made them feel like they were helping. My parents loved it. Not in a "we're proud of you" way, in a "this is useful" way. They called me independent, mature, a helper. And what happened to the money? It didn't become mine. It went where family money goes when you're the oldest, into the household. Groceries, bills. We need it this week. Just until payday. You understand, right? I understood. I always understood. When Heather and Leo got old enough to work, they didn't. Not once. Not even for fun money. And do you know what I told myself? Not favoritism. I told myself, we must be doing better now, because imagining your parents are unfair is like imagining the floor might vanish. You'd rather keep walking and pretend you don't feel it wobble. If I ever hinted at it, if I ever let a sentence slip that sounded like, "Why do they get?" My parents shamed it out of me. "How could you even think that?" My mother would say. wounded. Of course we love you all equally. Then she'd smile, sweet as poison. But you're the oldest, she'd add. You need to contribute. You need to be useful. That's what family is. Useful. That word stuck to me. It shaped me. It became the reason I didn't go to college. My parents told me they supported whatever I wanted. They were very generous with words. But money? They couldn't. They said it was wiser not to. They said it like they were giving advice. I looked at the costs and the lack of support and felt that heavy, practical certainty. There's no way. So I went straight to work after school. I started low. I climbed anyway. I didn't get the college experience. I got the pay rent and don't die experience. I worked hard. I got promoted. I became reliable. Eventually, I ended up in management. Stable, decent income. The kind of job that makes your parents proud when they can brag about it. And then Heather went to college. And Leo. There was money then. Not huge, not lavish, but enough. Enough that they could go. When I asked about it, careful, casual, pretending I didn't care, my parents gave me the same story. It was a few years later, they said. We were doing a little better. And then the line that always finished the conversation, you're the oldest. You have to understand. Heather studied something arts-related. She changed majors. She got married. Had 2 kids. Money was always a problem, always just out of reach. Leo graduated and then went traveling. I remember hearing about it and thinking, where did he get the money? I also remember the way my parents' voices sounded when they talked about it. He needed it. He was finding himself. It was important for his life. So they helped him. And by then, I was the only one with a truly stable income. Thomas and I built a solid life. We worked for it. We budgeted. We planned. We didn't treat other people's money like a backup plan. My parents retired, and the family story shifted smoothly into the next chapter. Eleanor contributes. I sent money, regularly, helped with mortgage gaps, bills, emergencies, little monthly transfers that became background noise, and it was treated like normal, like air, like gravity. Then Heather's kids became the center of everything. Sophie, the golden child, got gifts that made my jaw tighten. Not because I wanted Sophie to have less, because my parents would call me to say they couldn't afford something, and then 2 days later, they'd be squealing about a gift they couldn't resist buying for Sophie. We just couldn't help ourselves. They'd laugh. And Mia? Mia got budget gifts and familiar explanations. We'd love to do more, honey, but... And Mia would smile politely because she had the same illness as me. Understanding. Thomas noticed. He said it out loud once. They treat Sophie like royalty, he said. And Mia like... an afterthought. I told myself he was imagining it. Because if he wasn't imagining it, then I'd have to accept something I'd spent my whole life refusing to accept. And then Mia came home with sore hands, and my mother looked at my daughter and did to her what she'd done to me. Only this time, I could see it. Because it wasn't happening to me anymore. It was happening to my child. And suddenly, understanding didn't feel like a virtue. It felt like a trap. The call with my mother ended, and the house felt different. Like the moment a song cuts off mid-note and you realize you've been bracing for the chorus. Mia was still at the table. Thomas hadn't come home yet. And I was standing there with my phone in my hand, staring at the screen like it might apologize. I didn't call my sister right away. I want to say I did, like I was fearless and decisive and ready to burn bridges with a match and a smile. The truth is, I stood in the living room and told myself there had to be a reason. There always is. That's what people like me do. We collect reasons like receipts. Proof, proof, proof. So we're allowed to finally stop. Then I thought, Heather. And the weird thing is, I wasn't even calling to fight. I was calling because I needed clarity. Did my sister know they were shaking down a 12-year-old? Heather picked up like she'd been waiting. "Hey," she said, bright. I stared at my wall again. My walls have heard a lot. "Did you know," I said, keeping my voice flat, "that Mia was asked to contribute $100 towards Sophie's birthday gift?" Heather didn't hesitate. "Oh, yeah." Just, yeah. Like I'd asked if she knew it was raining. I swallowed. "Heather, she's 12. Heather sighed, already annoyed. "Eleanor, listen. It's for something big." "What?" I said slowly. "Is something big?" Heather's voice warmed up, like she couldn't wait to talk about it. "It's a horse camp," she said. "It's offered through school, like an optional thing. Sophie's best friends are going. She's been talking about it forever." A horse camp. Of course it was a horse camp. The kind of thing that costs a lot and makes everyone act like it's more important than it actually is. "How much?" I asked. Heather said it like it was obvious. "Tuition is $900. $900? I blinked hard. "So," I said, very calmly, "you're collecting money so your 12-year-old can go to a horse camp. And you decided my 12-year-old should help pay for it." Heather made a sound like I was being difficult, like I was refusing to join a group project. "Come on," she said. "It's only $100. "Only $100. I let the silence sit. Just a beat. Heather filled it with a little laugh that tried to sound light. "And I mean," she added, "I knew she's doing jobs now, so she has an income." My jaw tightened. I could hear Mia in the kitchen moving her pencil around, trying to pretend she wasn't listening. Heather continued, and her voice got that tone, half compliment, half expectation. "She's just like you were. Responsible," Heather said. "I thought you'd be proud." I felt something in my chest settle into place. Not rage, not shock, recognition. "No," I said. Heather paused. "No what?" "No," I repeated, clearer. "My daughter isn't paying for Sophie's trip." "It's not a trip," Heather snapped. "It's a camp." "Oh, sorry," I said, dry. "My bad. My 12-year-old isn't paying for your 12-year-old's $900 horse camp." Heather exhaled sharply. "God, you're so dramatic." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue the way we used to argue as kids, where you try to win by outlasting the other person. I just said, "We're not contributing." Heather's tone shifted, slightly colder. "Fine. It's your choice. But supporting family is a good thing, Eleanor. You know that." And there it was again. Family. Obligation. Contribution. The same song. Different verse. "I have to go," I said. Heather scoffed. "Whatever." I ended the call. I stood there for a second, phone still in my hand, and I felt empty. Not sad. Empty like you finally stop carrying something and your arms don't know what to do. Then I went to my computer, not because I'd planned it, because my body moved before my fear could argue. My banking app opened with that cheerful, neutral design, soft colors, friendly fonts, like it wasn't about to become a crime scene. I clicked into recurring payments, and there they were. Little lines, little labels, little normal things that had been siphoning off my life. Standing transfer. Mom and dad mortgage. $450 per month. Standing transfer. Heather mortgage top-up. $300 per month. Monthly transfer. Heather kids. $75 per month. Monthly transfer. Leo support. $100 per month. Family utilities help. $60 per month. I stared. Because when you see it all in one place, it stops being helping. It starts being a system. I clicked the first one. Cancel. Confirm. The screen asked if I was sure, in that polite tone apps use when they're about to change your life. Yes. Cancel. Confirm. One after another. It should have felt scary. It felt clean. Then I handled the access issue. The little ways my sister and brother had been able to treat my money like a shared resource. I revoked it, removed it, shut it down. No announcement, no warning, just consequences. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until the last confirmation screen disappeared and my lungs remembered how to work. I leaned back and laughed once, quiet, disbelieving, not because it was funny, because it was absurd, because I'd been doing this for so long I'd forgotten I could stop. The front door opened an hour later. Thomas walked in, tie loosened, face tired. He paused when he saw me at the computer. "What are you doing?" he asked. I turned to him, and my voice came out steady. "I'm taking back control of my life." Thomas stared at me for a second. Then his shoulders dropped like he'd been waiting years for those words. He didn't cheer. He didn't tell me "I told you so." He just nodded once. "Okay," he said. "I'm here." Mia appeared in the doorway like she'd been hovering. She held a little envelope in her hands, crumpled bills and coins inside. "I counted," she said quickly. "I have $90 now. Even with the 20, I still don't have 100. I just need 10. My stomach clenched. Mia's voice got brighter, like she was trying to sell me on the plan. "I'm gonna go ask Mrs. Novak if she needs anything else cleaned," she said. "Just a few more hours, then I'll have it." She said it like it was normal, like it was reasonable, like it was her job to buy her place in the family. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a $10 bill. I didn't make a speech. I didn't ask if she wanted it. I just placed it in her hand. Mia blinked at it, confused. "Mom?" Then I held her gaze. "You're not going," I said. Mia frowned. "What do you mean, I'm not going?" "You're not paying," I said, clear. "You're not going, and we're not paying them a penny." Mia's face shifted, confusion to panic in real time. "But Grandma said..." Her voice shook. "Grandma said if I don't pay..." She stopped mid-sentence, as if saying it out loud was painful to her. I crouched so I was eye level with her. "Mia," I said, low and steady, "listen to me. You don't pay for love. You don't pay for approval. If someone tells you your place in the family costs money, then that's not love. That's a transaction." Mia stared at me like she was trying to learn a new language. "If they want you," I continued, "they want you because you're you, not because you scraped together $100. Mia's fingers tightened around the 10. "But what if they don't?" she whispered. I swallowed. "Then that hurts. And it's not your fault. And we don't chase people who treat you like that." Mia's eyes filled again. "Everyone's going to be mad." "Let them," I said, and my voice didn't shake. "If their love comes with a price tag, then it's not love, and you're not buying it." Mia stared down at the bill. "Why did you give me the 10? She asked, small. "Because I want you to have it," I said. "It's yours. You can spend it on yourself. And because you don't need to work yourself sick to keep adults happy." Behind her, Thomas didn't speak. He just stood there, solid, present, like a wall at my back. I opened my phone and went to the family group chat, the one full of party chatter and emojis and people pretending everything was normal. My fingers hovered for 1 second. Then I typed. I posted a clear message. Mia would not attend Sophie's birthday party because she was asked to pay $100 towards Sophie's present, and I do not allow that. We would not be coming. Send. The chat went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then it started. Message after message. Calls. More calls. I set my phone down. I didn't answer. The next day, I had 53 missed calls. It was not over. It was just the beginning. A few days later, I went to pick Mia up from school. I was tired, but it was the clean kind of tired. The kind you feel after making a decision you should have made years ago. I pulled into the pickup line, and my heart dropped before the car even stopped. Because I saw them, my parents, standing near the curb like they belonged there, like they had a right, and Mia was with them, close to tears. I hadn't removed them from pickup permissions yet. It hadn't even occurred to me that they'd try this, that they'd go around me. I parked wrong. I didn't care. I got out and walked fast. Mia, I said, sharp with fear. Hey, what's going on? My mother turned with that familiar expression, concern arranged neatly on her face. Oh, Eleanor, she said, like I'd interrupted something normal. We just had to talk to her. My father stood beside her, quiet, watching, saying nothing as usual. My hands curled into fists. Why are you talking to my child? My mother's mouth tightened. Don't make this harder than it has to be. That sentence. Always that sentence. Mia's eyes were glassy. Her face was strained like she'd been holding in sobs for the last 10 minutes. It's nothing, my mother said breezily. We just wanted to clear things up. Then, like they were leaving a cafe, not a crime scene, they walked away. And Mia stood there shaking. I knelt beside her immediately. Mia, what did they say? Mia's face crumpled. It's all my fault, she whispered. My blood went cold. What? I destroyed the family, Mia said, voice breaking. Everyone's mad, and it's because of me. I stared at her, horrified. Mia, no. I shouldn't have told you, she rushed, words spilling like panic. I should have just paid. Then you wouldn't be fighting with them. You're not talking to them because of me. I felt sick. I felt rage, hot, sharp, at my parents for putting this on a child. And worse than the rage was the realization. It had worked. They'd found the one pressure point that could still move me. Mia. I took her face gently in my hands. Mia, I said, slow and clear. Look at me. She tried. She was crying now. This is not your fault, I said. Not in any way. Mia shook her head like she didn't know how to believe it. They said, she sobbed. They said, I broke the family. I swallowed hard. No, I said. They did. A long time ago. You just showed me. Mia's breath hitched. I stood up and took her hand. We're going home. In the car, she kept wiping her face, like she was embarrassed to be human. When we got home, Thomas was there. He saw Mia's face and his expression changed instantly. What happened? He asked. I didn't answer right away. I shut the door behind us with a careful click. Then I said, they cornered her at school. Thomas's jaw tightened. We sat with Mia at the kitchen table, the same table where this started, and we did something I should have done sooner. We told her the truth. Not in a dramatic speech. Not in a lecture. In a way a child could carry. Mia, I said, relationships aren't supposed to feel like this. Love isn't supposed to come with threats. Thomas leaned forward. Grown-ups don't get to blame kids for grown-up choices. Mia's voice was small. But they're family. I nodded. They're related to us. That's not the same thing. And in that moment, I made the decision that changed everything. It wasn't just money anymore. It wasn't just a boundary. It was safety. They didn't get access to my child. Not ever again. A few weeks passed. I removed my parents from every pickup list, every contact list. I took every administrative step required to make sure they couldn't do an end run around me again. It wasn't dramatic. It was paperwork. Then, a few weeks later, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole, and there they were, my parents, and Heather. They stood on my porch like a committee that had come to audit my boundaries. Thomas moved in behind me, quiet, solid, the human version of don't try it. I opened the door. My mother smiled first. She always smiled first. Like if she smiled fast enough, she could skip the part where she'd done something wrong. "We're willing to let this go," she said. Heather nodded, like she was signing off on a budget. "Yeah. Mom says you're still upset about the $100 thing." "The $100 thing," I repeated. My mother waved a hand. "It was a misunderstanding." Heather snorted. "Not even. Just a bad idea." "Fine. We hear you." That was their apology. A shrug wearing lipstick. My father stared past my shoulder into my house, like he was checking whether the lights were still on, like my home had always belonged to him a little. My mother took a breath, and her tone shifted into the real reason they'd come. "Okay," she said, bright. "So, we can put this behind us and go back to normal." Normal. There it was again. Normal. "I pay. You pretend." Heather's voice went tight, urgent. "Because I'm behind, Eleanor, and Mom and Dad are stressed. This isn't cute anymore." I didn't move. I didn't invite them in. I didn't offer water. I just let the porch air do its job. "No," I said. My mother blinked, offended by the concept. "No. What?" "No to normal," I said. "No to payments. No to you showing up here like this is a negotiation." Heather laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Are you seriously punishing everyone because Mom said something stupid?" I looked at her. "Heather, your definition of punishment is me not funding your life." My father finally spoke, soft and aggrieved. "We're family." "Yeah," I said. "That's the problem. You keep saying family and hearing ATM." My mother's smile cracked. "Eleanor, don't be nasty." I tilted my head. "I'm not being nasty. I'm being accurate." Heather lifted her chin. "You make more than me. You can help. You've always helped. And you've always taken," I said. No heat, just truth. Heather's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" I pointed with my chin, not my hand, small, controlled. "When I was 12, I worked. I handed my money over. You didn't. Leo didn't. You all called it being the oldest when it was me, and being young when it was you." My mother's mouth tightened. "We did our best. You did what was convenient," I said. "Then you got older, and you called it values." My father's jaw flexed like he wanted to argue, but he didn't have a clean place to stand. Heather tried anyway. "This is selfish. Sophie needs that camp." I cut in gently, which somehow made it sharper. "No, Sophie wants that camp. Mia needs her family not to treat her like a bill collector." Heather's face went red. "Oh my God, you're acting like we asked her to sell an organ." "You asked her to sell her peace," I said. "For a horse camp." Silence landed. Not dramatic, not cinematic. Just the moment where the math finally showed on their faces. My mother tried to regroup. Fine. Mia shouldn't pay. You're right. Happy?" I waited, because that wasn't the point, and they knew it. My father cleared his throat. "So, what do you want?" There it was, finally honest. "What do you want so we can get the money back?" "I want you off my daughter," I said. "Forever." My mother stiffened. "We are her grandparents." "And you used that to make her cry at school," I said. "So no, You don't get that title anymore. Not in practice. Heather took a step forward, voice sharpening. You can't keep her from us. Thomas moved, just a half step closer behind me. Not threatening, just present. A reminder that I wasn't alone. I looked at Heather. Watch me. Heather opened her mouth, then closed it. My mother tried for wounded. After everything... I didn't let her build the speech. After everything, I learned something important. I turned my head slightly, not taking my eyes off them. Mia, I called. Mia appeared in the hallway, small and tense like she expected lightning. Thomas shifted closer to her, still not touching, just anchoring. My mother's voice snapped. Eleanor, don't drag her into this. I kept my tone level. I'm not dragging her. You already did. Mia's eyes flicked to my parents, to Heather, then back to me. I took a breath. One. And delivered it clean. She's a child. You don't get to put your problems on her, and you don't get to use her to reach me. Mia's shoulders dropped a fraction, like her body understood safety before her brain did. Heather's face went pale in a way that made her look younger, smaller. My father stared at the porch boards like they might open up and swallow him. My mother's mouth worked, open, close, like she was searching for a word that wasn't ugly. She didn't find one. Heather recovered first, because she always did. This is unbelievable. I nodded once. Yeah, it is. My mother's voice went flat, icy. Fine. They turned and walked away with the stiff dignity of people who'd tried nothing and were all out of ideas. I watched them reach the driveway. Then I closed the door. Click! And that was it. No speech, no debate, no encore. Just the sound of an ending that didn't need their permission. 6 months later, still no contact. I don't hear from them directly, because I don't answer, but somehow I still get updates from relatives who don't want to get involved. They always say that right before getting fully involved. Leo's travel ended early. Apparently, self-discovery has a return policy when the money runs out. Heather picked up longer hours and now looks permanently offended by reality. She complains a lot, which is fair. Paying your own bills is a bold new experience. My parents are selling the house. They're calling it downsizing and going cozy. Sure, cozy is one word for we can't afford this anymore. Meanwhile, our home is easy, quiet, light. Mia doesn't come home with sore hands. I don't wake up to guilt. Our money stays in our life. And we're going places. Actual trips. Not apologies, not negotiations. Just us. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. My 11-year-old daughter came home and her key didn't fit. She spent 5 hours in the rain, waiting. Then my mother came out and said, "We have all decided you and your mom don't live here anymore." I didn't shout. I just said, "Understood." 3 days later, my mother received a letter and went pale. It was just a normal day at work. Busy, chaotic, the kind of day that chews you up and spits you out in latex gloves. I didn't know it would be the last normal day for a long time. We were short-staffed again, half the unit out sick, the other half pretending not to be. I'd already been yelled at twice before lunch, once by a patient's family, once by a surgeon who thought sarcasm counted as leadership. I was running on 3 hours of sleep and 1 energy drink that tasted like liquefied metal. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. Normally I ignore it during rounds, but something made me look. Maybe instinct. Maybe luck. 6 missed calls from Hannah. Hannah, my 11-year-old daughter, my quiet kid, the one who apologizes to furniture if she bumps into it. She never calls 6 times in a row unless it's important. I stepped into the supply room, shut the door, and hit call. She answered immediately. Mom? Her voice sounded small and tight, like she was trying not to cry. What's wrong, sweetheart? My key doesn't work. I frowned. What do you mean it doesn't work? It won't go in. I think they changed the lock. They? Grandma. Maybe Aunt Brittany. I rubbed my forehead. They wouldn't change the lock without telling me. Silence. Then a sniffle. Can you come home? I glanced at the clock. Another hour before I could even think about leaving. Honey, I can't right now. We're swamped. Try calling Grandma, okay? Or Aunt Brittany. They're probably home. I did, she said quietly. No one's answering. Keep trying. I promise someone will open the door soon, she said. Okay, but her voice didn't sound convinced. When the call ended, I stood there for a moment, staring at the wall of gauze and gloves, telling myself it was nothing, a mix-up, an accident. Then I shoved the phone back in my pocket and went back to work. 2 hours later, I looked again. 4 more missed calls. 1 text. Mom, I think they're here. Please come. My stomach dropped. I stepped into the hallway, ignoring the beeping monitors, and called her. She picked up mid-sob. Mom, they won't let me in. My voice came out sharper than I meant. Who won't? Grandma. Aunt Brittany. They came to the door. Grandma said we don't live here anymore. I froze. What? She told me to stop knocking. She said I'm being dramatic. I felt something heavy and dark crawl through my chest. Hannah, listen to me carefully. Are you safe? I'm under the porch light. Is it still raining? Yeah. Okay, stay right there. Don't move. I'm leaving now. I didn't ask permission. I found my supervisor and said, my daughter's locked outside. Family emergency. He started to argue, but one look at my face shut him up. 5 minutes later, I was in my car, scrubs still damp from sanitizer, rain hitting the windshield in furious streaks. It's a strange thing, how quickly your brain can switch from professional to animal. I wasn't a nurse anymore. I wasn't a daughter. I was just a mother driving through a storm, white-knuckled and shaking. By the time I pulled into the driveway, it was almost dark. Hannah was curled up on the porch, knees to her chest, hair soaked through. Her backpack sat next to her like a loyal dog. I ran to her, grabbed her into my arms. She was freezing. I'm sorry, she whispered, like she'd done something wrong. You have nothing to be sorry for, I said. My throat felt raw. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. She nodded, trembling. Then the porch light flicked on. The door opened. My mother stood there, wine glass in hand, like this was a social visit. Elena, she said, surprised. What are you doing here? I stared at her. You changed the locks. She sighed. We needed privacy. You locked my daughter out in the rain. She's fine. She's 11. Mom tilted her head, the same patronizing look she's had since I was old enough to disagree with her. We've decided you and Hannah don't live here anymore. It's better this way. Less tension. Who's we? Brittany and I. Of course. Behind her, my half-sister Brittany leaned on the doorway, phone in hand, fake concern painted across her face. Mom, maybe this isn't the best time. Oh, stop, Mom snapped. It's been coming for a while. Elena, you're an adult. You'll manage. I looked past them into the living room. Brittany's kids, Logan and Grace, were sprawled on the couch watching TV. My daughter's blanket was folded neatly beside them, the one with the little daisies she sewed on herself. Something inside me went very still. I didn't yell, didn't cry, just looked at my mother and said, "Understood." She blinked. What? You heard me. I turned, took Hannah's hand, and walked back to the car. We drove without speaking. Rain thudded against the roof like static. After a while, Hannah whispered, "Are we going to be okay?" "Of course we are." She nodded, watching the headlights smear across the road. "Grandma doesn't like me, does she?" The question hit harder than I expected. I forced a smile. "Grandma doesn't like anyone, sweetheart. Don't take it personally." She almost smiled. Almost. The silence in the car that night was heavier than the rain. Hannah fell asleep in the passenger seat, head against the window, while I kept my eyes on the road and pretended not to replay every word my mother had said. "You and your mom don't live here anymore." "Right, because throwing out an 11-year-old is just good housekeeping." I wish I could say I was shocked, but when someone's been teaching you who they are for decades, you don't get to be surprised. You just finally start believing them. That's when I realized this didn't start tonight. It started years ago. When I was little, there were 4 of us in that house. Me, my mom, my dad, and Brittany, my mother's first daughter. 5 years older, 5 times louder, 10 times more loved. If Brittany sneezed, Mom grabbed tissues and applause. If I sneezed, she told me to do it quietly. Dad was gone most of the time, an overworked hospital doctor, always somewhere between late rounds and early flights to conferences. When he was home, he smelled like antiseptic and coffee. He'd pat my shoulder, tell me I was a good kid, then pass out in the armchair with his boots still on. I adored him for it anyway. At least he noticed I existed. Mom didn't, unless she needed a target. She called me dramatic when I cried and ungrateful when I didn't. She said I was too sensitive, her favorite insult. Brittany could burn the kitchen down and Mom would laugh about kids being kids. I once dropped a glass of milk and got grounded for 2 days. Fair system. By the time I was 16, I was so desperate to get out that college looked like salvation. Even community college sounded like Paris. I thought distance would fix everything. Spoiler, it doesn't. When I met Hannah's father, I mistook attention for love. He was older, charming in the used car salesman kind of way, and I was 19 with the self-esteem of a houseplant. He bought me flowers once, so obviously he was my soulmate. A year later, I was pregnant. 2 years after that, he was gone. It ended the way cheap magic tricks do. Suddenly, and with everyone pretending to be surprised. He got a job in another state, or maybe another bar stool. I stopped keeping track. What I remember most is sitting in the kitchen with a positive test in one hand and a half-written nursing school application in the other, wondering how on earth I was supposed to do both. Turns out, you just do. You work, you sleep in 4-hour increments. You learn that crying in the break room counts as self-care. You also learn that being tired becomes part of your personality. But we managed. Hannah and I had a small apartment stacked with medical journals and unpaid bills. Life held together with takeout and overtime. Not happy exactly, but free, and that was close enough. 3 years ago, Dad retired. He'd spent his life saving strangers. Now he wanted to save time. He called one afternoon, said he wanted to visit, catch up, make up for lost years. He actually did. He showed up every week with takeout and stories about impossible patients and miracle recoveries. Hannah adored him. He adored her back. They had the same quiet way of watching people, like they were cataloging every secret. Mom didn't like it. Every visit reminded her that I existed. Then he got sick. I won't name it. You don't need the word to feel the weight. All you need to know is that it came fast and didn't leave. Mom called one night, voice trembling in that way she thinks sounds fragile and tragic. "He needs help, Elena. You're a nurse translation. Come fix this." So Hannah and I moved in. I told myself it was temporary, just until he got better, or worse. Those 2 years were the only time that house ever felt like a home. Dad was kind, grateful. I ran the place like a small hospital. Charts, pills, meals, order. Mom floated around acting like Florence Nightingale, except her uniform was whine and denial. When Brittany visited with Ryan and the kids, Mom lit up like the 4th of July, throwing dinner parties that looked more like auditions for sainthood. The moment they left, the lights went out again. 3 weeks ago, Dad's body finally gave up. The funeral flowers hadn't even wilted when the house started to change. Grief does strange things to people. Some fall apart. My mom redecorated. 3 days after the funeral, she was already moving furniture, humming to herself, calling it fresh energy. She started with Dad's room, painted it pale yellow, changed the curtains, moved out his books. She said it would make a perfect space for when Brittany and the kids visit. Within a week, it looked like a showroom. New bunk beds, toys, framed photos of Logan and Grace on the dresser. Not one of Dad. Not even one. I remember standing in the doorway, still in my black dress, watching her roll paint like nothing had happened. She looked happy, energized, like someone setting up for a holiday instead of dismantling a life. I wanted to ask how she could do that so soon, but she beat me to it. Brittany and Ryan might come stay next weekend, she said. The kids shouldn't have to cram into the guest room anymore. They'll need their own space, she smiled, like she was explaining something sensible. I nodded, because what else do you do when your mother is already turning grief into a renovation project? After that, the visits blurred together. Brittany's family was there almost every weekend. They had their own keys, their own laughter echoing through rooms that used to belong to my father. And somehow, Hannah and I, who actually lived there, started to feel like guests. Mom called it healing. She said it made the house feel alive again. Meanwhile, Hannah and I stayed in the smallest room down the hall, our beds pressed against opposite walls. Mom called it cozy. I called it claustrophobic. One night I overheard her in the kitchen whispering to Brittany. "Rent's outrageous these days," she said. "It just makes sense for you to live here full time. We'd all save money." Then quieter. "Besides, Elena probably won't stay much longer. She was only here for your father." I remember standing in the hallway, holding a mug of tea that suddenly tasted like metal. It wasn't even a month since the funeral, and already I was being erased. When I confronted her, she smiled like she'd caught me being dramatic again. "You said you were just here to help your father," she said. "He's gone now. You have your job, your own life. It's time to move on. Move on. Like grief was a lease and my time was up." A few days later, Jonathan Wells, the lawyer who handled Dad's affairs, called. "Just some paperwork to finalize," he said. I drove to his office expecting insurance forms. Instead, he handed me a folder. "Your father placed the house in a living trust," he explained. "He wanted to make sure it stayed with you and Hannah." I blinked. "What do you mean? Stayed with me?" "It's yours," he said simply. "He transferred it before his death. Your mother isn't listed anywhere on the deed." The words didn't register right away. When they did, all I could think was how fast everything had shifted. 3 weeks from eulogies to eviction. I thanked him, took the papers, and drove home with them on the passenger seat, unopened. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Because how do you walk into a house full of laughter and say, "Actually, all of this is mine"? I thought I'd wait for the right time. Let her grieve. Let her calm down. But 5 days later, she changed the locks. I didn't sleep after the locks. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Hannah curled on the porch, her backpack slumped beside her like a guard dog that failed. By sunrise, the adrenaline had turned into something steadier, rage with a plan. I made 2 calls before my coffee went cold. One to the hospital to take a few days off, the other to Jonathan Wells. He picked up on the second ring. "Elena," he said, already sounding awake. "She changed the locks," I told him. "Your mother?" "She's not my anything right now." There was a pause. Paper rustled. "Do you have access to the trust documents?" "In my car." "Good. Bring them. Come now." His office was 10 minutes away. Not months, not a lifetime. Just 10 minutes and one red light. Jonathan looked calm in the way only people paid by the hour can manage. "This is straightforward," he said, scanning the pages. "The property's in the trust. You're the trustee. She has no legal standing. Then fix it. I'll draft the notice." "How soon?" He checked his watch. "Give me 20 minutes. He typed while I stood by the window watching rain crawl down the glass. "Do you want to serve it personally, or shall I?" he asked. I laughed once. I've had enough doors slammed in my face for one lifetime. "You do it." He printed, signed, sealed, and handed me a copy. The ink was still wet. Perfect. An hour later, we were parked down the street from the house. Same sky, same rain, like the weather was stuck on repeat. Hannah stayed with a friend. No way was I letting her near that door again. Jonathan walked up the driveway, umbrella open, envelope tucked under his arm. I stayed in the car, engine running, wipers ticking back and forth. Mom answered almost immediately. Even from here, I could read her body language. Impatient, superior. The Queen interrupted. Jonathan spoke. Calm. Professional. He handed her the papers. At first, she didn't even look, just rolled her eyes and said something I couldn't hear. Then she read the first line. Her face changed. Brittany appeared behind her, holding a mug like she'd just been cast in the drama she secretly hoped for. She snatched the papers, scanned them, and started shouting. Jonathan didn't flinch. He said something brief, probably a polite translation of "you've been evicted," then turned and walked back to the car. Mom yelled after him, words lost in the rain. He slid into the passenger seat, closed the door, and said, "It's served." That was it. The drive back was silent except for the sound of the windshield wipers. I kept expecting to feel victory, but all I felt was the weight of exhaustion finally shifting off my chest. It wasn't triumph. It was oxygen. When we reached the corner, Jonathan said, "She'll try to fight it. I'd be disappointed if she didn't." He smiled faintly. "I'll handle any filings. For now, she's officially trespassing." "Good," I said. "Let her stand in my living room and explain that to the sheriff." He nodded once and got out, umbrella blooming above him. I watched him disappear into the gray before driving off. Back at my friend's apartment, Hannah was coloring at the kitchen table. She looked up. "Did you talk to him?" "Yeah." "Are we going home?" "Soon." She nodded, serious. "Grandma's going to be mad." "She's been mad since 1987, I said. "She'll survive." Hannah giggled, the first real laugh I'd heard from her in weeks. I decided it was the sound I'd fight for from now on. That night, I couldn't stop replaying the look on my mother's face when she realized the house wasn't hers to rule anymore. For once, she'd opened a door she couldn't slam. I lay awake listening to rain hit the window, steady and endless. It sounded like patience. It sounded like waiting for the next move. Because there would be one. There always is. The days after the notice blurred together. Rain again, lawyers again, paper again. Jonathan called that same night. "She's already hired counsel," he said. "They're claiming you fabricated the lockout." "Of course they are." "They also allege undue influence over your father." I laughed. Because caring for a dying parent is suspicious now. He didn't laugh. He never does. "I'm filing for emergency possession." The police report helps write. The report. I'd gone to the station that morning, sat under buzzing fluorescent lights, and told a young officer how my mother locked an 11-year-old outside in the rain. He'd typed everything quietly, then looked up and said, "That's neglect." "You did the right thing." Jonathan attached the report to the petition, and the judge signed the order 2 days later. Fastest justice I've ever seen. Mom's lawyer tried to stall with a motion full of bold italics and zero evidence. The court denied it before lunch. Jonathan called again. "The sheriff's office will set an enforcement date. Probably within the week." "Already?" "You wanted quick," he said. That night, I told Hannah we'd be home soon. She was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Are they still there?" "Who?" I said, even though I already knew. "Grandma and them." "No," I said. "Not anymore." She nodded, serious, like she understood something bigger than she should have to. When the email came with the date and time, 10 a.m., Thursday, it didn't even feel real, but the words were right there on the screen. Writ of possession, immediate enforcement. The morning of the eviction, I woke before the alarm, heart already sprinting. The sky looked like metal again, gray, restless. I made coffee so strong it could dissolve a spoon and drank it standing up. Jonathan had emailed the schedule the night before. 10 a.m., sheriff's enforcement, standard procedure. 2 words I'd been waiting for. Standard procedure. Because nothing about my family ever was. Hannah was at school. I told her I had errands. She believed me. I didn't want her to see this. No child should ever watch people she called family being escorted out by law enforcement. When I pulled onto the street, my stomach twisted. 3 cars in the driveway. Of course. Brittany's SUV, Ryan's truck, Mom's sedan. They were all home for the big show. 2 deputies were already at the door when I parked. I stayed near the sidewalk, rain starting to mist down, pretending to scroll through my phone like this was someone else's house. From inside came voices, sharp, familiar. Mom first, high and offended. Then Brittany, dramatic, wailing like she was auditioning for pity. Ryan chimed in with that useless tone men use when they think volume equals authority. One of the deputies knocked again, firmer this time. The door flew open. Mom appeared, hair perfect, fury perfected. She pointed at me across the yard like I'd been summoned from hell. "She's the one!" she yelled. "She forged everything!" The deputy didn't even look at me. "Ma'am, we have a court order." Brittany appeared behind her, holding her phone up like she was live streaming. "This is abuse," she said. "You can't throw out a widow." Ryan muttered something about lawyers and rights as he folded his arms. The deputy read the order anyway, calm, steady. He explained that they had 15 minutes to collect essential items and leave the property. 15 minutes. Mom laughed. The brittle kind. "You can't be serious." He was. They started pacing, arguing, knocking things over. Brittany cried harder. Ryan slammed a door. Mom kept repeating, "This is my home," like repetition could turn it into truth. I just stood there, halfway up the walkway, hands in my jacket pockets, pretending the rain didn't sting. I didn't say a word. When the first deputy stepped aside for them to pass, Brittany stormed out carrying a stack of clothes and 2 framed pictures, one of her kids, one of Dad, which she'd taken from his office. I almost said something. Then I remembered. Not my circus anymore. Ryan followed, lugging a box and glaring at me like he thought I'd enjoy this. He wasn't wrong. Mom was last. She paused on the threshold, turned toward me, eyes glassy with something between hate and disbelief. "I hope you're proud," she said. I wasn't. I was tired. She walked past me without another word. The deputies closed the door behind her, simple and final. The silence that followed felt unnatural, too thick. One deputy handed me the keys. "Ma'am," he said, "it's yours now." 3 words, heavier than I expected. I thanked him. My voice cracked halfway through. When their cars finally pulled away, I stood there alone in the drizzle, staring at the house that had been both battlefield and cage. I went inside. The air smelled like dust and perfume, sweet rot. A glass of wine sat abandoned on the counter. A jacket hung over a chair. It looked less like people had lived there and more like they'd vanished mid-scene. I opened windows, one by one, letting the rain air drift through. For a second, I thought I heard Dad's voice in the quiet. "You did what you had to." I wanted to believe him. That evening, I picked up Hannah from school. She climbed into the car, smiled when she saw the boxes in the back seat. "Are we moving again?" she asked. "Home," I said. The word felt strange in my mouth, like something I hadn't used in years. When we walked through the door, the house echoed. She ran from room to room, touching everything, like claiming territory. "This is ours again," she said. "Yeah," I whispered. It always was. It's been 6 months since the eviction. Hannah and I haven't spoken to any of them. No calls, no texts, no surprises. I blocked every number. Peace looks good on a screen. I still get updates, though. Small-town gossip doesn't need permission. Jonathan hears things through the legal grapevine, and a nurse I know from the old hospital still lives near Brittany. Apparently, Mom moved in with Brittany and Ryan right after she lost the house. It lasted about a month before things exploded. Mom started reorganizing their house. New curtains, new furniture, new rules. Ryan didn't take it well. They had a huge fight, and she locked him out. Cops got called again. He moved out a week later. Now Mom and Brittany live together, which everyone says is going great if you define great as 2 people passive-aggressively competing for oxygen. Their latest argument made it onto Facebook Marketplace comments. Someone screenshotted it and sent it to me. Mom was selling Brittany's old dining set. Brittany replied, "You don't even live here." Beautiful symmetry. As for us, we're good. Hannah's been helping me in the garden. She says everything grows faster when you stop shouting at it. The house is quiet. No new locks, no new storms, and best of all, no one's tried to move in. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.